Anne from Game Like a Mother. I specialize in games that play in 20 minutes or less so you can fit them into the busiest schedule because games are quality time and you need more games in your life. The April top 10 list are two-player games. These are all games that are specifically designed for just 2 players. And there are some really great ones that we've just been playing on repeat lately, so I'm really excited to get to talk about them today. I start with games for younger ages and then progress up to more involved and strategic games at the end of the list. I have them all listed below in the description of the video along with timestamps, so you can just click on the time of a particular video if you want to skip ahead to one, and let's get started. First on this list, I have Gobblet Gobblers, which is essentially tic-tac-toe plus strategy. It is for kids. I would not bring this to an adult game night, but grown-ups can play it too if you really want. All it is you have these little pieces that you have your regular tic-tac-toe board, people are 2 different colors, and then you have different sized pieces that are hollow and you can gobble up the other pieces. So if you play a little piece, somebody can gobble it up with a larger piece. So it's important when you strategically use your larger pieces out there to claim a spot. And so it's great because everyone knows tic-tac-toe. A lot of times for kids, it's hard to get them going on a new game. Sometimes if they it's just unfamiliar or they don't know what's going on with the game concept. And this is just, it's tic-tac-toe, but you have pieces that can swallow each other up. So simple, fun, great game. Next on the list, I have Brix, which is Connect 4 meets tic-tac-toe. And this one, I would say, is somewhere between a children's and adult's game. You could bring this to play with an adult, but kids would like to play it too. And it's an excellent little game because there are many different ways to play it. You can make it easier or harder. You have little bricks that you're playing that have an X on one side and an O on the other and are different colors. And you can either play where you're simultaneously building like a little wall together. And you can either play where players are trying to get X's or O's, or you can play for different colors. And in the very complicated version, the most advanced version, you can play where one person is trying to get X's or O's in a row and the other person's trying to colors in a row. And it's great because you just have to think a lot more before you place a piece because what you're doing is also being used by your opponent. And so it's one of those things where it's so quick to get up and running, but there's a lot there because of all the different things that you can do with the blocks, which is like my favorite. I love where it's just like, here's the rules, let's get going. But then you get to think a lot about what your actual strategy is as you play. Next, we have Patchwork Express, which is one of my favorites. It's a quilting themed game, and you win by making the most complete quilting board. You fill in your quilting board the most, and you win if you get the most buttons. It is a game that I would say appeals more to adults, but it's ages 6 and up, so kids can play. I play this with my kids upon occasion, and they really like it, but thematically, it's for adults, I would say. There is a full version of Patchwork that, again, I love. The Patchwork Express, it just has slightly bigger pieces, and so it's still the same game. They haven't changed it by making it Patchwork Express. So if you have a little more time, you can try out Patchwork as well. But it's a very unique game, which I like. I don't think I've ever come across a game that plays in quite the same way, but it's not, once you get used to how it works, it's not anything incredibly complicated. It's ages 6 and up. So you have 2 different boards. Each person who's playing has their own quilting board, and then you have the board where your pieces are moving along, and that determines whose turn it is and when buttons are getting paid out. And then you're purchasing these Tetris-like pieces that you're fitting on your quilting board, and there are buttons on some of those pieces, and you can have multiple turns in a row. It's not like your turn, my turn, your turn, my turn. So however much you move when you get one of the new Tetris pieces determines how far ahead you are. So then the other person, it's their turn until their piece on the playing board is ahead of yours. So there's a little more going on, but it's not anything crazy, and it's just fun, unique, and I love it. Next, we have Fairy Trails, which is by the same game designer, and this one, the goal of your game is you are in an enchanted forest, and you have team gnomes versus team elves, and you're trying to play all of your houses in the enchanted forest first. I would say this appeals more for adults. Kids can play it too. I've played it with my children. They like it. More for adults, it's a nice chat and play game because all you're trying to do is you close off paths. Once your paths have, you're playing down tiles, and it's creating pathways through your fairy tale forest. And once you've closed it off with all dead ends, then you can place all of your little, they're like clear stones that are different colors that are your houses that you're placing down. And so you only ever have, this is my favorite game to teach people right now because it's so easy. You have a communal playing area that you're playing on. So what the tiles you're playing are helping other people as well. But you just have 2 tiles and you play one and then you draw one. And that is the game. There really isn't anything you can do wrong at the beginning of the game. The strategy starts to matter a little bit further on. So it's so easy. And I was worried the first time I played it because my husband kept on making my paths go off further, and at a certain point you just want to close them down, and if people are playing cards to make them go off again, you start getting annoyed. So I was worried that this was a game that was going to end in strife and unhappiness, but it turns out that you can only mess with people a little bit while playing this game, and then it means that you aren't completing your own paths. So I ended up defeating him in the game where he tried to mess with me. So I really liked the game. But it's a great like a date night game where you're doing something but you can chat, and it's competitive but in kind of a mild way, and the evening will end in happiness for all, win or lose. And they're short. It's a short game, so you can just play again if the wrong person, not you, wins. You just play again. Next, we have Aqualin, which is a very new game, which is a tactical puzzle game. You are trying to create the largest school of fish, and one person is going for the same color, and the other person is going for the same kind of sea creature. And this game, feels kind of like checkers level strategy to me, which is really fun, engaging, like a different take, great theme. Regular checker pieces are boring. Kids will play this more than checkers because it's so fun, and the pieces are really beautiful. I would say it's for adults or kids. You could bring this to an adult game night and it would be fine. And the strategy is really fun for this game. You have a drafting pool where each person pulls from the same tiles they get to pick, and then you have a board that you're just placing 36 tiles out there, so it doesn't take that long. And on each of your turns, you get to move one of the previous pieces that was already out there, and then place your piece, and then you refill the drafting pool. That's it. Easy to teach people, so people will actually play it with you. And this is one of my new favorite restaurant games or outdoor, like windy weather games. I don't know how many times I've tried to play cards out by a lake somewhere, and you're just putting down stuff on top of them to try to hold them in place. And it's so nice when you have tiles and it doesn't matter that it's a little bit windy. And also for going places where you want to be kind of quiet, and if you're rolling dice, that's loud. And so I'm thrilled to have a game that like checks all the boxes. If I need to bring along a game out to a restaurant or out somewhere with us, it's just easy, fun, good new game. So I am thrilled with this one. It's really fun. Next, we have Hive, which is kind of in the same vein of games, but I would say like Aqualin is to checkers, Hive is to chess. It's like insect chess. And this game, your goal is you have all these tile pieces. Again, a great outside or restaurant game. And what you're trying to do is each person has a queen bee tile, and you're trying to surround it with other tiles. Once it's completely surrounded, whether by your tiles or their tiles and some of yours, then you win the game if you've surrounded their queen bee. And then all of the other tiles are different kinds of insects, and they have different moves that they do too. There's a beetle, grasshopper, ant, and one other. And they all have different types of movements that they do, but it's pretty simple. So it's not too complicated. I taught my older son, who just turned 9, and granted he plays a lot of games, but he hasn't, I think we've tried chess with him once, and then we got distracted by all of our other games, so we didn't go back. But he picked this up right away, which is really neat to see, and he was excited about it. And it's the same kind of logic as chess, but the gameplay works differently. It feels slightly less demoralizing to me because in chess, if you make a wrong move or don't notice something, one of your pieces, they'll capture one of your pieces and it gets taken away. There's none of that in this game. You're either adding a piece or moving a piece. Is all you're doing. So it feels a little more free form. There isn't a board. You're just, once you play a tile out on a space, and then each person takes turns playing in the same space. So it's really easy to get up and running. The main problem with this game is that you're probably going to play it a bunch and then have to get expansions, because they even have expansion tiles like a ladybug and a pillbug that do different things and add on to the game. And they figured out that this was a really great travel game really quickly. So they also do have a travel version. Just make sure you can find expansions for whatever version you get, because the tile sizes are different. So that will matter. But it's just, if you've been trying to get your child into something like chess, or if you're an adult and you have fond memories of playing chess, but you kind of want to mix it up with something else, maybe your spouse didn't play chess, this is just a fantastic one to try out. I was never a big chess person. I was a checkers champion a couple of years, no big deal. but I never really played that much chess, and I love this. So it's very accessible and super fun. Next on this list is Kingdomino Duel. And if you haven't experienced any of the Kingdomino world of games yet, you are in for a treat. They are all excellent. They are domino games, but they make it be connected terrain that score points at the end of the game rather than your standard number dominoes. So it's really fun. And this one, Kingdomino Duel, uses dice, and you roll your dice and you create your own dominoes from that. So it's up a level from regular Kingdomino. There's some special abilities that you get to earn if you collect the right dice along the way. And so it is probably my favorite of the Kingdomino world to play like with my husband in the evening. They each have their own, they're all excellent. So far they have Dragomino, which is my first Kingdomino, dragon themed for little kids. Great, perfect for a 5-year-old. Up next, they have regular standard Kingdomino, which has a 2-player version that plays very well. It's 2 to 4 players. And this is a great choice if your family has been playing a lot of like Mexican train type of domino games. There's a little bit more, but it's very manageable. Great replacement for that. And then next, Kingdomino Duel, a little more strategy, but still short, quick game. And then finally, if you want to sink your teeth into a game with a little bit more going on, you want to play like a full-fledged strategy game, they have Queendomino, which is also excellent. It just takes longer and is a little more complicated and takes a little more time to get up and running. So they are all excellent. But Kingdomino Duel is it's a very unique gameplay, and it works so well. So I'm very impressed. Check out Kingdomino. Next on this list, we have Lost Cities, which is it's one of my favorites. We played this so much over the winter. It is a minimalist game with a lot of strategy and heart-rending decisions as you're playing. The goal of the game is to get the most points, which you accomplish by going on expeditions. Each person is dealt 8 cards, and all you do on your turn is you play a card and you draw a card. That's it. So it's really easy to get a new person and say, I have this great game for you. And they say, I don't want to learn a new game. And you say, don't worry. All you do is you play a card and you draw a card. Granted, it's not, it's one of those ones that's great for the evening because it's relaxing, but I still I'm having to make a lot of decisions. I'm using my mind. And so make sure you get the newer version that has 6 expeditions instead of just 5. You can still play with the 5 expedition version, but this way you have a choice. When you go on an expedition, you are sinking in points or cost to that expedition. So you start out with a -20 as soon as you've placed a card of a particular color. And then if you lay out all of the cards for an expedition, it's really neat because they show your journey from the beginning until you get to like the temple or the ruin or whatever you're trying to get to at the end. So even the artwork is really cool. And so you're trying to play cards in sequence, and you have to get back over that 20 points in order to make points. So you can end up with negative points at the end of this game. One thing I will say is the scoring is like a whole fun thing for this game because you have wager cards that multiply the value of whatever your score is in a certain expedition, which is cards played for a specific color. And so you're having to, for each column, do a very simple mini algebra equation for it because you've got -20 plus 2 times 17. So you solve that and then you go on to the next one. So a lot of times I really enjoy this. At the end of the game, you aren't exactly sure who's won when you've played all the cards because somebody has negative points on one of their stacks, but then, oh, it looks like they have a lot over here. And so you just have to do the math and figure it out. It's not anything complicated, but your 6-year-old is going to be able to play, but probably is going to be able to need a little bit of help. But it's I don't know. I don't mind a little bit of fun math at the end of the game, and the game itself is so worth it. You have a discard pile in the middle that anybody can draw from, and rule is I don't want to help my husband on purpose in a competitive game or even by accident and give him a card that he really needs. And so you're thinking, oh, I can't play any of my cards. I have to discard one. It might help him. And so there's this inner turmoil. It's very exciting. And then sometimes he'll give me the card I want, and then I evil laugh and take it at the end of my next turn. And it's just, it's pretty great. So again, it's fun. Just simple and easy to get going, but there's a surprising amount there for such a simple, minimalist game. Next, we have Codenames Duet, which is the only cooperative game on this list, but that doesn't mean this is Happy Fun Times game. My husband and I have been playing this again in preparation for talking about it for this video, and it is a challenge. If you've played regular Codenames, you know it's a very popular secret word guessing game. And in the standard version, you have teams and you're trying to compete to be the first to get your partner to guess all of the secret words in the grid without accidentally guessing the assassin card before the other people guess all of their secret words that correspond to their secret agents. They say you can play it 2-player on the box and in the rules, but it doesn't work that well. If you want to play it 2-player, get the version that was specifically made with that in mind. This version, a few of the things are different when you play. you have a shared key card that you put in between so you can only see your side of the key card. And each person has 9 words they're trying to get the other person to guess on the key card, but there's only 15 total words you're supposed to guess, so there's some overlap there. And there's not just one assassin on your card, there are 3. So you've got to be on top form to not make them guess the wrong word that's one of the assassin words where you end the game instantly. And you're trying to guess it in 9 turns or fewer. But they have an extra couple of tokens if you need a little more leeway when you're still getting started. If you need 10th or 11th, they allow that, and then there's scoring at the end where you can say, okay, I guessed in this many turns, or I had this many left over. There's scoring for the standard version, so it's kind of like getting your best golf score. It is competitive. It is intense. You will not win every time, but then to keep it from getting, if you're just playing guess in 9 words, it could get a little bit repetitive in what you're trying to do. So they mixed it up a bit, and they created a missions map where you start in Prague. Apparently that's where all of the secret agents start out. And then once you've beaten it with 9 rounds, they have different, you can travel to different cities, and you're trying to fill out this, the world has all these different secret agent missions you can go on. And so some of them, we were doing one last night where you had 11 turns to guess, but you could only guess 2 bystanders. And if you guessed more than that, you lost. And so it changes the dynamic of the type of clues you're trying to get. All of a sudden you have to get a little more cautious, because I'm all about trying to throw out a word like you're just saying one word and one number, and that's how you're giving your clues. So it's just really compact, neat, easy, but so challenging. And so I'm all like, sports 6, and maybe you'll guess some wrong things, but we'll figure it out. Well, you can't do that if there's only 2 bystanders, so you're having to be very cautious. And then there are other ones where you can make more mistakes, but you only have a few guesses. So it really, it feels like you're trying to accomplish a thing together. And so we stayed up like an extra hour and a half later than we planned on, because we were so excited about going on some more of those missions and trying different challenges. So it makes the game a lot more dynamic and really fun. So, and I love that this is engaging, it's competitive, it's exciting, and it isn't timed. Most adult competitive games, cooperative games, are timed, which is fine sometimes, but not other times. When it's the evening and you've decided to play a nice light game together, and maybe you don't want it to be this timed, high-intensity ordeal. You just want it to be a nice, pleasant word game. That's what this is. Amazing for the bookworm in your life. I would say more for adults than children, just because you have to have a pretty good vocabulary and understand the references that people are saying in order to do really well at this game. And finally on this list, we have Star Realms. My borderline addiction for about the last year and a half. I played this semi-compulsively for a while, but it's better now. I pay attention to my 2-year-old daughter again, and I read books again in the evening. But it wasn't like that for a while, because this game is, it sucks you in, and it's a deck building game, like set in outer space. And you're trying to, it's 2-player, and you each have a certain amount of authority or points. And you start out with a very basic hand of ships. And you can use the ships, each turn you play a certain amount down on your side, and you can use them to purchase new ships or bases, and to generate combat to take down your opponent's authority to 0. That is the goal of the game. And so that's the basics of the game. It's really easy to get up and running. And the card game version of the game is very good. It's what my oldest son prefers to play with. He likes to hold the cards in his hands. And they have all these expansions, which if you play this a bunch, you need to get the expansions. Otherwise, it ends up being kind of the same every time. So if you're going to play this a bunch, get the expansions. For most games, if you're going to play them a bunch, get the expansions. They know what they're doing. Get the expansions. The one thing I'll say about this game is I prefer playing the online version. They have an app version of the game. And this game, there's a lot of shuffling. And especially if you get the expansions, it's a lot of shuffling. You better be very good at shuffling, which just makes it take longer. And I like games to be quick. And the scorekeeping, especially when you get into more involved games, there's a lot of things that are going on that you need to keep track of, and with scrapping and the damage that's doing, for the combat that's generating to take down your opponent's authority. So the card game version is great. It's fun. There's a lot to be said for it. The app version is free to try out. And you can play against a computer that way. Then you pay a little bit, and you can do pass and play, which just means you're playing the base deck, and you can sit and play with an opponent. And so that's what I did a lot of times in the evening with my son. If it was a day that we hadn't had a chance to play a board game together, I would say, do you want to play Star Realms before bedtime? And he would say, yes. And so we would sit, and it was really great because there's quite a bit going on, but it was just easy with the app version because there wasn't anything to really get out or clean up at the end, and it's a lot faster. And you can play, they have a bunch of missions that you can play, and you can play against strangers on the internet, which I also did a bunch. So it's you don't need to have another person in your house that will sit down and play a game with you. You can just sit on your app and play games. But it was, so there's a lot you can do with it. And it's a really amazing, that was my first deck building game, and I just loved it. So, and there aren't a lot of them that play this quickly. It's especially for some of these more strategic, involved games, to have it able to play in 20 minutes is quite incredible. And so this is, if you miss playing some of those, you used to sit and play 3-hour board games, and there just is not the time for that anymore. This is an amazing replacement because it is so much in such a little bit of time. So that's it. That's our top 10 two-player game list for April. I hope you found a new game or two that you're excited to check out. You can subscribe to my channel if you want to be up to date on all of the games I'm talking about. I do one of these top 10 lists every month, and then I do a lot of how to play videos for games, because why waste time reading rules when you can just get up and running really quick and go play a game instead? So thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time from Game Like a Mother.